The fluorescent lights of Silvertech Industries hummed their familiar tune as Marcus Williams pushed his cleaning cart down the executive corridor at 6 a.m. His calloused hands gripped the mop handle with the quiet determination of a man who'd learned that dignity wasn't found in job titles, but in how you lived your life. At 42, with silver threading through his dark hair and laugh lines etched around eyes that had seen both joy and sorrow, Marcus carried himself with a grace that most people in $1,000 suits could never buy. His daughter Emma's photo, a gap-toothed 8-year-old holding a homemade "World's Best Dad" trophy, hung from his ID badge, a constant reminder of why he worked 2 jobs and why every sacrifice mattered. The morning started like any other Tuesday. Marcus methodically cleaned the break room on the 5th floor, wiping down counters that would soon be cluttered with coffee cups and ambitious Monday meeting notes that had drifted into the week. He was refilling the paper towel dispenser when he heard it, the sound that would change everything. Sharp, cruel laughter echoed from around the corner, the kind that makes your stomach turn because you instinctively know someone's being hurt. "Can't you understand simple English?" a voice sneered. Marcus recognized it immediately. Derek Hutchins, the senior marketing director, a man whose expensive cologne couldn't mask the rot underneath. Marcus wheeled his cart toward the commotion. 3 executives in crisp suits surrounded a woman backed against the wall near the copy machine. She was maybe 30, with kind eyes that were now brimming with tears, her hands moving rapidly in sign language that her tormentors either couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge. "Maybe if we talk louder, she'll get it," another voice mocked. "Hello. Copy. Machine. Broken." The woman, whose name tag read Sarah Chen, IT department, was frantically trying to communicate, her fingers forming careful shapes in the air, pointing at the machine, then at her watch, clearly trying to explain something. But the 3 men just laughed harder. "Is she having a seizure?" Derek asked mockingly. "Should we call someone?" Something in Marcus snapped. Not with anger, but with the crystalline clarity that comes when you see someone vulnerable being torn down and know that silence makes you complicit. He'd spent too many years teaching Emma that kindness wasn't passive, that being good meant standing up even when your knees shook. "Gentlemen," Marcus said quietly, stepping between them and Sarah. "The lady is trying to help you." Derek's face twisted with annoyance. "Excuse me? We're in the middle of something here, janitor. Don't you have toilets to scrub?" Marcus didn't flinch. He'd been underestimated his entire life, by teachers who didn't believe a kid from the South Side would amount to anything, by his ex-wife who'd walked out when their daughter was diagnosed with leukemia and the medical bills started piling up, by every person who'd ever judged him by his uniform instead of his character. "I do," Marcus replied evenly. "But right now, I have something more important to do." He turned to Sarah, and slowly, carefully, began signing. His movements were deliberate, unpracticed but clear. He'd learned sign language in the hospital during Emma's chemotherapy treatments, spending endless hours in the pediatric ward where a deaf volunteer had taught him so he could communicate with another little girl who'd become Emma's friend. Sarah's eyes widened with surprise and relief. Her hands moved quickly, and Marcus nodded, catching enough to understand. He turned back to the executives. "The copy machine isn't broken," Marcus explained. "There's a major system update happening this morning that she tried to announce via email yesterday. The copiers will be down for 90 minutes. She came up here at 6 in the morning, before her shift technically starts, to put up signs warning people. She was trying to tell you there are working machines on the 3rd floor." The hallway fell silent except for the industrial hum of the building coming to life. Derek's face reddened. "Well, she should have just..." "Just what?" Marcus interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying a weight that made grown men uncomfortable. "Just magically developed hearing so you wouldn't have to treat her like a human being? She was doing her job. She was trying to help you. And you responded by mocking her disability." "You can't talk to us like that," one of the other executives sputtered. "Do you know who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," Marcus said quietly. "I clean your offices. I see the family photos on your desks. I've read the motivational posters about teamwork and respect that hang on these walls. I've emptied the trash bins filled with printed emails about company values and inclusion initiatives. So yes, I know exactly who you are. The question is, do you? Before anyone could respond, the elevator dinged. Every head turned as CEO Victoria Hartwell stepped into the hallway, her silver hair pulled back severely, her expression unreadable. At 63, she'd built Silver Tech from a garage startup into a billion-dollar corporation, and she hadn't done it by missing details. She'd arrived early for a breakfast meeting and had heard raised voices. Someone want to explain what's happening here? Her voice could cut glass. Derek jumped in first, spinning a tale about confused communication and simple misunderstandings, his words tumbling out in desperate justification. Victoria listened without expression, then turned to Marcus. Mr. Williams, isn't it? You clean the executive floor. Yes, ma'am. Your version, please. Marcus explained simply, factually, without embellishment. He didn't exaggerate the cruelty or diminish what he'd witnessed. When he finished, Victoria turned to Sarah and signed a question. Sarah's surprise was evident, but she responded, her hands describing what had happened. What nobody in that hallway knew was that Victoria's younger brother was deaf. She'd grown up signing, advocating, fighting for his place in a world that often treated him as less than. She'd built her company on the principle that how you treat people when they can't benefit you reveals your true character. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. Derek, you and your colleagues are suspended without pay pending a full investigation. Clear your desks. HR will contact you. You can't be serious. Derek protested. Over a janitor and some IT. Finish that sentence, Victoria interrupted icily, and you'll be fired instead of suspended. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Williams, I'd like to see you in my office in 1 hour. Marcus's stomach dropped. He was getting fired. He'd broken the invisible rule, staff didn't confront executives. He thought of Emma, of her upcoming field trip he'd promised to chaperone, of the rent due next week, of everything he'd lose. An hour later, Marcus sat in Victoria's pristine office, his uniform suddenly feeling shabby against the leather chairs and mahogany desk. Victoria studied him with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Tell me about yourself, Marcus. So he did. About Emma, about the medical bills that still haunted him years after her remission, about learning sign language in hospital corridors, about working double shifts to save for her college fund, about teaching her that wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in dignity and compassion. Victoria listened to everything, then leaned forward. Marcus, I've been looking for a new director of facilities and workplace culture. Someone who understands that a company's values aren't words on a wall but actions in a hallway. Someone who leads by example. The position comes with a salary of $90,000, full benefits, and an education fund for dependents. Interested? Marcus couldn't speak. He'd been cleaning toilets for minimum wage just hours ago. I don't have the qualifications, he finally managed. You have the only qualification that matters, Victoria replied. You have character. The rest we can teach. What do you say? 3 months later, Marcus stood before the entire company at the quarterly meeting. His new role had transformed Silvertech's culture, mandatory inclusion training, sign language classes offered to all employees, mentorship programs, and a simple but revolutionary policy: treat everyone like they matter, because they do. Derek and his colleagues never returned. Sarah Chen became a close friend and helped Marcus develop his signing skills. Emma, watching her father receive a standing ovation in the audience video he showed her, cried with pride. That evening, tucking Emma into bed, Marcus reflected on how a single moment of choosing kindness over silence had changed everything. Not just for him, but for everyone who'd watched and learned that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that says someone deserves better, the calloused hands that bridge